The African savanna stretches out in every direction, golden and endless, shimmering under a sun that shows no mercy. The grass bends in a warm wind, carrying the scent of dust, dung, and something else entirely, something electric, something that speaks of pursuit, of hunger, and of a predatory intelligence so refined it seems almost impossible for an animal that runs on four legs and communicates in patterns of paint and motion. If you have ever watched a pack of African wild dogs work, you already know what I mean. And if you have not, then what you are about to witness will change the way you think about predators forever. Because on this particular morning, in the vast reaches of the southern African wilderness, 24 African wild dogs did something that no lone predator on this continent could dream of accomplishing. They brought down a Cape buffalo, a fully grown adult, a creature that has killed lions, a creature that has gored leopards, and tossed hyenas across the air like ragdolls. In under 7 minutes, a pack of painted wolves dismantled one of the most dangerous animals in Africa. And how they did it tells us everything about what makes this species the most successful large predator on the planet. Before we go any further, if you are the kind of person who watches a buffalo bring a lion to its knees and wonders what was going through the minds of both animals, then you are exactly who this is for. Hit subscribe and stay with us, because every story we tell comes from out there, from the dirt and the blood and the astonishing, pitiless elegance of the natural world. Now, let us go back to the beginning. Dawn in the Lowveld. The light is still thin, that particular shade of pale gold that feels borrowed from somewhere else, fragile and temporary. The landscape is a mix of open grassland and scattered mopane woodland, broken occasionally by drainage lines thick with reeds and thorn scrub. It is the kind of terrain that rewards animals who know how to read it, who understand the subtle geography of ambush and escape, of cover and exposure. The pack has been moving since before first light. This is not unusual. African wild dogs are creatures of the early morning and the late afternoon, squeezing their hunts into the cool margins of the day, before the heat makes sustained effort lethal. 24 individuals in this pack. That is an exceptionally large group by any measure. The average pack size across their range is somewhere between 6 and 12 animals, and even 10 individuals gives a pack formidable coordinated power. 24 is something else entirely. It is a force, a fluid, hyper-coordinated, endlessly communicating force of nature that moves like a single organism, with 24 sets of eyes, 24 noses, and an accumulated decision-making capacity that genuinely rivals anything else on the savanna. They move through the grass with their characteristic loose-limbed lope, ears swiveling forward and back, heads low, nostrils working the air. Their coats catch the early light in fragments, the black and white, and rust and gold of their mottled fur, making them simultaneously conspicuous and confusing to look at. No two wild dogs have exactly the same coat pattern. It is as individual as a fingerprint, and researchers have used those patterns for decades to identify and track specific animals. But out here, among themselves, those patterns serve another purpose. In the flickering, dappled light of early morning, with 24 animals moving through mixed terrain, the broken coloration makes it genuinely difficult to count them, to fix them as individual shapes. They dissolve into one another and into the landscape in a way that is profoundly disorienting. The pack's alpha female leads from the front. She has been in this position for 3 years. Her mate, the alpha male, runs at her shoulder or just slightly behind, monitoring the pack's cohesion, responding to any sign of distraction or confusion with a quick, direct nudge. The subordinate adults fan out in a loose crescent. The younger animals, a cohort of 1-year-olds on their first full season as hunting participants, hold the edges, eager and not yet fully polished. Experience matters in a wild dog pack. It matters enormously. They have already investigated and passed on 2 potential targets this morning. A small herd of impala that spooked before the pack could position itself, bolting into dense bush where pursuit would be fruitless and dangerous. A juvenile wildebeest that had appeared isolated for a moment before its mother returned and placed herself squarely between it and the approaching pack, and even a lone wild dog thinks twice about challenging a wildebeest mother in defense mode, so the pack moved on. Now, ahead of them, across a stretch of open mixed scrub, they see the buffalo. It is not the herd that catches their attention first. It is the lone bull. He is standing slightly apart from the main body of the herd, maybe 80 meters out from the nearest group of cows and calves. He is massive. An adult male Cape buffalo, at full maturity, is something that has to be seen in person to be properly understood. He stands around 1.5 meters at the shoulder. He weighs somewhere between 700 and 900 kilograms. His horns are fully developed, the heavy boss fused across the center of his forehead, the curved tips worn and battle-scarred from decades of fighting and scraping. His hide is dark charcoal gray, almost black in places, rough and thick, pocked with old wounds from lions and thorn, and the constant attrition of living rough in the African bush. His eyes are heavy-lidded and ancient-looking, pale brown with a reddish tinge, and there is something in the way he carries himself, in the slight forward lean of that enormous neck, the angle of those horns, that speaks of an animal that has survived everything this continent has thrown at him. He is old. That is the first thing the alpha female registers. There is a slight stiffness in his right hindquarter. His breathing is fractionally elevated. He has come to water recently, and his hooves are still soft from the mud. These are things a wild dog reads, not through conscious analysis, but through something faster, something built into 40 million years of predatory refinement. Old, slightly compromised, isolated from the herd. The calculus is complete in seconds. She calls the hunt. The wild dog hunting call is not a bark. It is not a howl. It is a high, breathy twittering sound, almost bird-like, layered with harmonics, individually varied, but collectively understood. When the alpha female makes that call and shifts her body language from investigative to committed, the pack responds with an explosion of energy. They mob each other briefly, muzzles pressed together, tails spinning, the intensity rising to almost a fever pitch before it channels itself into forward motion. This is the rally. This is the moment when 24 individual animals become one hunting machine. They spread. This is the thing about wild dogs that separates them from every other large predator in Africa. Lions depend on ambush and short explosive power. Leopards are solitary and surgical. Hyenas are powerful and persistent, but work in a loose, opportunistic way that lacks the structural elegance of a dog pack at work. Cheetahs are the fastest thing on the savanna, but physically fragile and essentially solo operators. Wild dogs are none of these things. They are coursing hunters, built for sustained pursuit, and they operate with a level of spatial coordination that makes them look, from above, like a single organism flowing across the landscape. The pack fans into a wide arc, not converging directly on the bull, but spreading to either side of him. Some individuals loop wide, already beginning to position themselves ahead of and around the likely directions of escape. Two dogs hold back entirely, maintaining visual contact without committing, holding themselves in reserve. This is not accidental. This is not instinct in the simple sense. This is tactical intelligence expressed through bodies in motion. The buffalo sees them. Of course he does. His eyesight is not exceptional, but his hearing is superb, and his sense of smell is extraordinary, and the wind, unfortunately for him, is carrying the pack's scent directly to him. He lifts his head, his nostrils flare, his tail comes up. He turns to face the nearest approaching animals and lowers his head, presenting those horns. The pack knows this posture. They have seen it 1,000 times. A standing, facing buffalo is a dangerous buffalo. The first phase of this hunt is not contact. It is pressure. It is maneuvering. It is the slow, inexorable erosion of the bull's options until movement becomes inevitable. 3 dogs approach from his left, trotting steadily, unhurried, maintaining just enough distance that he cannot target them effectively. 2 more circle to his right. The alpha male moves directly toward him from the front, not charging, just advancing with that loose, fluid, relentless gait that is one of the most psychologically demoralizing things any prey animal can face. Because it does not stop, it does not hesitate, it just keeps coming. The bull makes his first mistake. He swings his head to the right, toward the dog circling that flank, and in the split second that his attention shifts, the dogs on his left close 2 meters of ground without breaking rhythm. He turns back, swings his hindquarters, repositions. The dogs adjust instantly, with no apparent communication, flowing around his movement, like water around a stone. For 90 seconds, this geometry of pressure continues. The herd, 80 meters away, has registered the commotion. Several cows have raised their heads, and a few younger bulls have moved toward the outer edge of the group. Cape buffalo are intensely social, and their defensive response to predation is usually collective, the famous bunching behavior that has defeated many a lion pride. But the pack has chosen their moment and their location carefully. The bull is far enough from the herd that the decision calculus for those other animals is genuinely uncertain. Moving toward him means moving toward 24 wild dogs. The herd hesitates. The bull breaks. He does not flee directly away from the pack. He cannot, because the dogs have positioned themselves too completely around him. He runs at a 45-degree angle to his left, which is the direction with the least immediate coverage, and he runs hard, that huge body accelerating with surprising speed, the ground trembling under the impact of 900 kilograms, moving at speed. And the pack is already moving to match him. This is the second phase, the chase. There is a common misconception that African wild dogs run their prey to exhaustion purely through sheer endurance, that they are marathon runners outpacing a sprinter. This is partially true, but it misses something important. Wild dogs do not simply chase prey in a straight line and wait for it to tire. They run in relay. They anticipate. They cut corners. As the bull accelerates and turns, dogs that are already positioned ahead of his line of travel maintain a steady pace, while the animals directly behind him push hard. When he curves, the dogs on the outside of his curve take shortcuts, appearing in front of him or to his side, forcing him to turn again, to expend more energy in acceleration and direction change. The bull is fast. At full gallop, a Cape buffalo can reach 50 kilometers per hour. He is using that speed now, crashing through the edge of the scrub and emerging onto more open ground, throwing up a small storm of dust and dry vegetation. But the pack flows around and through the scrub without breaking stride. Their lighter bodies, long legs, and enormous cardiovascular systems, built for exactly this kind of sustained effort, keep them pacing him. One of the younger male dogs, a 2-year-old running on the left flank, makes his first contact. He drives in low from the side, snapping at the bull's left hind leg, connecting briefly before the bull kicks and sends him sideways. The young dog rolls, comes up unhurt, and is instantly back in pursuit. His contact was not designed to bring the bull down. It was designed to tell them something, where the weakness is, how this animal moves when it is forced to react, what the compensations in his stride look like when he kicks. Information. This pack is gathering information at 100 kilometers an hour. The alpha female is now running directly behind the bull, matching his pace with what looks like effortless precision. She is watching his hindquarters with an intensity that is almost meditative. She sees the slight irregularity in his right hind stride, the microsecond of hesitation that tells her the old injury there is loading up, beginning to cost him. She accelerates. She hits the right hind tendon area with a precision bite and holds for 2 strides before releasing. The bull lurches. His hindquarters dip briefly, a stumble rather than a fall. But it is enough. The pack has its information confirmed and its target identified. Now 3 animals converge on that right hindquarter simultaneously, and the physics of the situation shift decisively. Cape buffalo are extraordinary animals. Their first line of defense against predation is not speed, and it is not evasion. It is the hide itself. The skin of a mature buffalo bull is some of the thickest of any land animal in Africa, genuinely comparable to leather armor in its resistance to casual damage. Lions have been observed biting at a buffalo's hindquarters for sustained periods without penetrating to vulnerable tissue. The dogs know this. They have evolved around it. They do not bite randomly. They do not pile on in a scrum. They target with anatomical precision the Achilles tendon region, the hamstrings, the soft tissue of the inner thigh, where the skin is thinner, and the major blood vessels run close to the surface, the perineal region, the nose, which is extraordinarily sensitive and neurologically rich. These are the points where bites cause maximum functional damage with minimum resistance. The bull is still running, but 3 things are happening simultaneously that make his position untenable. His right hindquarter is being repeatedly hit by rotating attackers, preventing any individual dog from taking serious damage from a kick while maintaining constant pressure on the target area. 2 dogs have flanked him and are snapping at his nose, driving his head down and sideways, disrupting his balance and his ability to see the ground ahead. And the rest of the pack has spread around him in that relentless arc, preventing any lateral escape. 3 minutes and 40 seconds into the hunt, the bull turns to fight. This is the moment that kills lions. A Cape buffalo that decides to stop running and stand its ground, that drops its head and charges with those horns, is one of the most lethally dangerous things in Africa. The acceleration of a charging buffalo from standing is terrifying. Lions have been speared by those horns and thrown meters into the air. Entire lion prides have been routed by a buffalo's countercharge. The pack expects this. They have read the shift in his body language before it becomes movement, and they scatter. Instantly, every animal peeling away from the center, creating empty space where they were. The bull charges and finds nothing to hit. His forward momentum carries him through vacant air. He stops, swings around, looks for them. They are already repositioning. Behind him, to his sides, ahead of him. He has used energy in that charge. He has stressed that compromised hip further. He has given them exactly what they needed. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. The alpha male hits him from behind now, driving in with what can only be described as committed ferocity, clamping onto the tail and then releasing, immediately moving to the hindquarter. Another dog hits the same region from the left. The bull swings his hindquarters right, trying to kick, and in doing so, he gives 3 animals on his right flank an unobstructed path to that damaged hamstring area. They are already moving. The contact is simultaneous from both sides. The bull's hind legs buckle. Just for a moment, just the beginning of a buckle, but it is enough. His hindquarters drop, and he has to dig with his front hooves to stay upright. The dust rises around him. He is breathing hard now, great heaving breaths, his sides pumping. The blood is showing on his hindquarters, dark against that charcoal hide. He is not going to get away. He knows this. On some level, in whatever way an animal processes the irreversibility of a situation, he knows this. And yet, he does not collapse. He does not submit. He stands, and he swings those horns, and he is still dangerous, and he will remain dangerous, right up until the moment he cannot be anymore. This is the Cape buffalo. This is what makes them what they are. The pack presses. Now animals are hitting from the front and the side, snapping at his nose, his cheeks, the heavy dewlap of skin beneath his throat. The blood is flowing more freely now. His breathing is labored not just from exertion, but from the beginning of systemic stress. He has turned twice more, charged twice more, into empty space, and each charge has cost him more than the last. 5 minutes and 50 seconds. His front legs go first. They buckle, and he goes to his knees, and then the weight of that enormous body does the rest. He is down, chest hitting the ground, and the pack is on him instantly. Every animal that had been holding the perimeter now converging with a speed and certainty that leaves no question about how this ends. The kill itself is merciful in its brevity. With 24 animals working with that coordinated, anatomically targeted precision, the loss of blood pressure is rapid. He makes 2 more attempts to rise. On the second attempt, his front legs get him halfway up before the weight of animals and the reality of his injuries pull him back down. By 6 minutes and 40 seconds, he has stopped moving. The pack feeds immediately. There is no pause, no ceremony. Unlike lions, who often rest after a kill, wild dogs eat with absolute urgency, and they have very good reasons to do so. On the African savanna, a pack of wild dogs that has made a kill has painted a target on itself. Every vulture within visual range is already beginning to circle. Every hyena that heard the commotion or caught the blood scent on the wind is already moving. Lions cover ground at a trot when they sense an opportunity for piracy. The wild dogs have, on average, 20 to 30 minutes of undisturbed feeding before the first serious competition arrives. In that window, a pack of 24 adults can consume an astonishing quantity of meat, driven by extraordinarily fast metabolisms and stomachs designed for rapid ingestion. The bigger individuals take the most accessible high-quality tissue first. The more subordinate animals work the periphery. But the truly remarkable thing is what happens next. Not every member of this pack participated in that hunt at full intensity. 2 of the animals here are females who are lactating, carrying nursing pups that are currently denning some distance away. They ate, yes, but they did not run the full length of the chase. More significantly, there are individuals in this pack who did not take part in the hunt at all. Pups older than 8 weeks, but not yet fit for the full demands of a hunt, and a single adult male who was injured in a territorial encounter 10 days ago and whose left foreleg is still not fully functional. These animals will be fed by the pack. This is not metaphor. This is literal. When the pack returns to the den after a successful hunt, individuals who were present at the kill will regurgitate partially digested meat for those who were not. They will do this reliably, without apparent reluctance, for injured adults, for nursing mothers, for pups. The communal care structure of a wild dog pack is, by almost any measure, the most sophisticated and reliable of any carnivore in Africa. It is what allows packs of this size to maintain themselves, to bring through the next generation despite the relentless attrition of life on the savanna. There is an argument, and it is not a trivial one, that this social structure, this genuine cooperative investment in every member of the group, is what makes the wild dog the most evolutionarily successful large predator on the continent when measured against the odds it faces. Not the most numerous, not the most dominant, the most successful at the core business of predation per capita. Wild dogs have a kill success rate on hunts of somewhere between 60 and 90%, depending on the study and the habitat. Lions succeed roughly 30% of the time, leopards perhaps 40% in ideal conditions, cheetahs around 50%, but with much smaller prey. Wild dogs, with their coordinated pursuit, their relay strategy, their anatomical targeting, and their refusal to abandon a hunt without compelling reason, are simply the most effective killing machine Africa has produced. And yet there are only somewhere between 6,000 and 9,000 African wild dogs remaining on the entire continent. This is the paradox at the heart of their story, and it is worth sitting with for a moment, because the reasons for their scarcity are not what you might expect. They are not scarcely distributed, because they are outcompeted in predation. They are not rare, because they are poor breeders. A successful wild dog pack is an extraordinarily productive reproductive unit. Alpha females can produce litters of 10 to 12 pups, and with the whole pack participating in pup rearing, survival rates within the pack can be high. The mathematics of wild dog reproduction, under ideal conditions, can generate population growth that is remarkable for a large carnivore. They are rare because of the landscape they need to exist in, because of what has happened to that landscape, and because of the specific ways their social structure makes them vulnerable to a particular kind of disruption. Wild dogs are wide-ranging animals in a way that almost nothing else in Africa is. A single pack routinely covers a home range of several hundred to several thousand square kilometers over the course of a year. This is not a static territory, in the way a lion pride holds a territory. It is a nomadic circuit, adjusted seasonally and in response to prey availability, and it requires that circuit to remain ecologically functional across its full extent. Roads, fences, settlements, and agricultural land fragment that circuit. A wire fence that poses no obstacle to a lion, which simply ducks under it, can disrupt a wild dog pack's movement pattern in ways that cascade through their social structure and reproductive success. Disease is the other great enemy. Wild dogs have no resistance to canine distemper or rabies, and in the fractured landscape of modern southern and eastern Africa, they come into increasingly frequent contact with domestic dogs that carry both diseases. A single introduction of rabies into a pack can eliminate every individual within weeks. These are animals with extremely tight social bonds, who greet each other by mouth, who share food mouth to mouth with pups and injured adults. A respiratory pathogen moving through a pack of 24 animals with those interaction patterns moves fast. The same intimacy that makes their communal care system so effective makes them epidemiologically vulnerable in a way that more solitary carnivores simply are not. And then there is the direct persecution. Wild dogs have historically been viewed across much of their range as vermin, as cattle killers, as competition for game. They have been trapped, shot, and poisoned in significant numbers in living memory. Many of the places where they once ranged are now empty of them, not because the habitat became unsuitable, but because they were methodically removed by people who did not understand or did not care about what they were. All of this makes what happened on that dust-scented morning, with 24 individuals flowing in their terrible coordinated grace across the Lowveld toward one very large and very dangerous buffalo, something more than a hunting story. It is a statement. It is evidence. It is proof that somewhere, in some protected corridor of the African bush, this species is doing what it evolved to do, at full pack size, at full functional capacity, operating at the absolute peak of its extraordinary abilities. 7 minutes. In 7 minutes, 24 African wild dogs dismantled an animal that could absorb a lion's best effort and walk away. To understand why this is possible, and why it is so much more impressive than the raw number suggests, you need to understand the Cape buffalo as it actually is, rather than as it is often portrayed. The buffalo is not merely a large, passive prey animal that happens to be big enough to be risky. It is an active, intelligent, and genuinely aggressive creature that has been shaped by millions of years of predation pressure into something that fights back with lethal force and tactical awareness. Buffalo herds are not random aggregations. They have social structure, dominance hierarchies, and collective decision-making capacity. They post sentinels. They remember threats. There are well-documented cases of buffalo herds returning to a site hours after a lion attack, finding the resting lions, and mounting a coordinated counterattack. Old lone bulls, like the animal our pack targeted this morning, are often the most dangerous of all. They have nothing left to protect except themselves. They are no longer inhibited by the calming influence of herd dynamics, and they have decades of experience with predators. They have survived long enough to learn from every encounter. A single buffalo horn can disembowel a lion. The force behind a tossing motion from a buffalo neck is sufficient to launch a full-grown adult lion several meters into the air. The hard-fused boss at the base of the horns, the characteristic shield-like formation that develops in mature bulls, is genuinely resistant to biting attack from above. Lion prides working together on a single buffalo can spend 40 minutes or more in sustained contact before bringing the animal down, and during that time, they take serious damage. Lions die hunting buffalo. It happens regularly enough to be considered an occupational hazard for a lion that makes buffalo a primary prey item. Wild dogs cannot absorb damage the way a lion can. A dog that takes a direct hit from a buffalo hoof, a direct gore from a horn, is likely dead or mortally injured. Their hunting strategy is built around not taking that kind of hit, around never being where the horn or hoof lands, around distributing the risk across so many individuals moving so quickly that no individual animal is ever committed and exposed at the same moment. When the alpha female made that first precise contact with the bull's hindquarter during the chase, she was not braver than a lion. She was operating within a system that made that contact survivable, because the moment she made it, she had already begun to disengage, and the pack's movement around her was already anticipating the bull's reactive kick and adjusting to it. The whole hunt, from that first approach through the scattering countercharge and the final bringing down, was a continuous negotiation between 24 bodies and one enormously dangerous one, and the outcome was determined not by any individual dog's power or courage, but by the collective intelligence of the system. This is what makes wild dogs genuinely unique. There is no other predator on Earth, land, or sea that has taken cooperative hunting to this level of structural sophistication in a terrestrial environment. Wolves in cold climate ecosystems come close and are often cited in comparison, but the African wild dog operates in an environment with a wider diversity of dangerous prey species, more immediate competition from larger predators, and a social structure that is, if anything, even more tightly integrated than a wolf pack. Orcapods in the ocean represent perhaps the only true parallel, and they are separated from wild dogs by 150 million years of evolution. What the pack did in those 7 minutes was not luck. It was not bravado. It was the product of an evolutionary process that has been running for tens of millions of years, refined in the crucible of the most predator-dense ecosystem on the planet, operating at full expression on a cool morning in the southern African bush. After the kill, the dynamics of the scene shift in a way that is worth describing because it captures something important about the wild dog's position in the ecosystem. They are apex predators, yes. They have just brought down the continent's most dangerous bovid, but they are not at the top of the African social order. That position is occupied by lions, and to a significant degree, by spotted hyenas, operating in large clans. The first hyenas arrive at 11 minutes after the kill. There are 5 of them initially, then 9, then eventually 14. They approach with that rocking, head-low gait, making the whooping contact calls that are bringing more individuals from further out. The pack does not simply abandon the carcass. The wild dogs respond with a collective mobbing behavior, harrying the hyenas individually, nipping at their heels, making it as uncomfortable and energetically expensive as possible for each hyena to approach the kill. This buys time. Every minute of harassment is more meat consumed, more energy banked against the certainty that the kill will eventually be lost. Lions are a different calculation. When a male coalition of lions arrives at a wild dog kill, which happens at a frequency that is genuinely depressing when you consider the implications for wild dog energetics, the dogs read that threat differently. 2 large male lions, each weighing over 200 kilograms, are not animals that 24 wild dogs will stand and fight. They can harass and delay, but the outcome of a direct confrontation is not uncertain enough to risk it. They yield the carcass. In areas of high lion density, this piracy is frequent enough to place meaningful nutritional stress on wild dog packs, and it is one of the reasons that the pack needs to hunt as efficiently and as often as it does. This morning, the lions are not close. The pack feeds for 19 minutes before the hyena pressure becomes overwhelming. They have fed well. The nursing females are gorging, preparing the food that will become milk, and then regurgitated solid food for their pups. The injured male has eaten what he needs. When they pull back from the carcass, and the hyenas swarm in, the pack reassembles quickly, checks each other over, with that characteristic muzzle pressing and twisting of bodies, and begins to move. They are heading back to the den. The den is located in an old aardvark burrow complex at the base of a termite mound, in a drainage line thick with shade and shelter. 7 pups, 7 weeks old, are there with 2 babysitting adults who did not participate in this morning's hunt. As the hunting party returns, the pups erupt from the den entrance in a boiling mass of spotted, round-bellied, enormous-eared chaos. They mob the returning adults instantly, pressing into their muzzles with their own, a behavior that triggers the regurgitation response. The adults comply readily, multiple individuals feeding the pups in rapid succession. This is the heart of it. This is what the whole extraordinary performance this morning was in service of. 7 pups who will become adult hunters, who will learn their trade over the next 2 years, who will eventually contribute their own coordination and intelligence to a pack that is already exceptional. The hunt, the kill, the 7 minutes that ended a buffalo's long and dangerous life. All of it feeds forward into this, the next generation of one of the most remarkable animals Africa has ever produced. It is worth thinking about what we almost lost. African wild dogs were functionally extinct across most of West Africa by the 1990s. They were gone from most of North Africa before that. In Central Africa, their status is so poorly known in many areas that declaring them absent is only slightly more certain than declaring them present. In East Africa, populations in Kenya and Tanzania are fragmented and small relative to historical records. In Southern Africa, primarily in the protected areas of Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, South Africa, and Mozambique, meaningful populations survive, and in some areas are doing well. This is where 24 animals can still exist as a functioning pack, where a hunt of this scale and ambition is possible. It happened because of protection, not just the nominal protection of a line on a map around a national park, but the active, well-funded, ecologically managed protection that keeps roads and fences and settlements from fragmenting movement corridors, that vaccinates domestic dogs at the margins of wild areas against rabies and distemper, that monitors individual packs with enough frequency to detect disease outbreaks early, and that has worked, carefully and over decades, to shift the attitudes of farming communities at the edges of protected areas from hostility to something approaching coexistence. None of that work is finished. All of it is ongoing, and all of it is precarious, in the way that conservation work in the real world is always precarious, dependent on funding and political will and the thousand specific decisions that individual people and communities make about how they relate to the wildlife living at the edges of their lives. But on this morning, a pack of 24 African wild dogs read the landscape, read one animal, and executed a hunt of breathtaking efficiency and elegance. They brought down something that lions fear and that has shaped the behavior of every large predator on this continent for millions of years. They did it in 7 minutes. And then they went home to feed their pups. There is something in that which feels like a kind of answer. To what question exactly is harder to say? To whether wildness can endure, to whether the deep evolutionary logic of predator and prey can still play out in its full, uncompromised form in the world we have built, to whether 24 animals, moving as one, across a golden African morning, carrying in their coordinated motion the accumulated intelligence of tens of millions of years, is something the world still has room for. It is. Here, on this morning, unmistakably, it is. The pack moves through the golden grass, the pups tumbling among the returning adults, the injured male moving more slowly, but holding his place in the group, the nursing females already settling into the shade near the den entrance. The alpha pair groom each other briefly, the alpha female's head low, the male working carefully at a small cut on her ear she picked up during the hunt. Around them, the pack settles, some animals sleeping almost immediately, with the deep, immediate sleep of animals that have worked hard and eaten well. Above them, the sun climbs higher, and the savanna heats, and the dust rises in small spirals from the dry earth, and somewhere out in the open grassland, the vultures are still gathering, dark shapes tilting against